She was the largest moving object ever built by human hands, 882 feet of steel, luxury and hubris. The RMS Titanic was not just a ship, she was a floating palace, a symbol of everything the Edwardian age believed about itself, that technology had conquered nature, that progress was unstoppable, that man could build something unsinkable. In this video, I use modern AI tools to reconstruct the final hours of the Titanic, from the calm evening of April 14th, 1912, to the frozen dawn that followed. This is not just the story of a shipwreck, it is the story of the night that shattered an era's faith in itself. On the evening of April 14th, the Titanic was 4 days into her maiden voyage from Southampton to New York. The ship carried 2,224 passengers and crew, from millionaires in first class to immigrants in steerage, all bound for the promise of America. The night was unusually calm, the sea like black glass. The temperature was dropping toward freezing, but in the first-class dining room, champagne flowed and the orchestra played ragtime. No one knew they had less than 3 hours to live. At 11:40 p.m, lookout Frederick Fleet spotted something in the darkness ahead. He rang the warning bell 3 times and telephoned the bridge. "Iceberg, right ahead." First Officer Murdoch ordered the engines reversed and the helm turned hard to starboard. For 37 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Titanic struck the iceberg on her starboard side, a glancing blow that seemed almost gentle to passengers above. Some felt a slight shudder. Others heard a grinding noise. A few curious souls went on deck to see chunks of ice scattered across the bow. Most assumed it was nothing serious. The ship was unsinkable after all. But below the waterline, the damage was catastrophic. The iceberg had opened a series of gashes along 300 feet of hull. 6 of the ship's 16 watertight compartments were flooding. The Titanic could float with 4 compartments breached, not 6. Within minutes of the collision, designer Thomas Andrews understood the mathematics of disaster. The ship had perhaps 2 hours to live, and there were lifeboats for only half the people aboard. Captain Edward Smith ordered the lifeboats uncovered and the wireless operators to begin sending distress signals. The new SOS code crackled across the Atlantic, reaching ships too far away to help in time. The nearest vessel that heard the call, the Carpathia, was 58 miles away, 4 hours at full speed. Most passengers still did not understand the danger. Stewards knocked on cabin doors, instructing people to put on life belts and report to the boat deck. Many refused to leave their warm cabins for the freezing deck. The ship seemed stable. The lights were on. The band was still playing. Why abandon this floating palace for a tiny lifeboat on a dark ocean? The class divisions that defined Edwardian society now became matters of life and death. First-class passengers had easy access to the boat deck. Steerage passengers faced locked gates and confusing corridors. Many did not speak English and had no idea what was happening. The crew, untrained in evacuation procedures, struggled to lower lifeboats they had never practiced with. At 12:45 a.m, the first lifeboat was lowered into the black water. It had a capacity of 65 people. It carried 28. Officer after officer sent boats away half empty, not believing the ship would actually sink, not wanting to risk overloading the davits. Their early boats were filled mostly with first-class women and children, some reluctant to leave their husbands behind. The rule was women and children first, but the rule was applied unevenly. On the port side, Officer Lightler interpreted it strictly. No men at all. On the starboard side, Officer Murdoch allowed men to board if no women were waiting. Millionaires like Benjamin Guggenheim and Isidor Straus chose to stay behind, giving their places to others. Other men disguised themselves or pushed past women to reach the boats. Below decks, the reality was grimmer. Third-class passengers, many of them families emigrating to America, found themselves trapped behind barriers designed to keep steerage separate from the upper classes. Some gates were eventually opened, others remained locked. The statistics would later tell the story. 62% of first-class passengers survived. Only 25% of third-class passengers made it. By 1:30 a.m., denial was no longer possible. The bow was visibly underwater, the stern was rising, the lights flickered. On the boat deck, the remaining crowds understood that there were not enough lifeboats, that most of them were going to die. The band continued to play. Wallace Hartley and his 7 musicians had gathered on deck, performing popular songs and hymns as the ship sank beneath them. Legend claims their final song was "Nearer, My God, to Thee." None of them survived, but their music gave the dying ship a strange dignity. Couples said their final goodbyes. Ida Strauss refused to leave her husband Isidore. "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go." They were last seen sitting together on deck chairs. Father Thomas Biles heard confessions and led prayers for those who knew they would not escape. Benjamin Guggenheim changed into evening clothes. "We've dressed up in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." The last lifeboats were gone by 2:05 a.m. Over 1,500 people remained on the sinking ship. At 2:18 a.m., the lights of the Titanic finally went out. The stern rose higher and higher until the ship was nearly vertical. Passengers and crew clung to railings, slid down the deck, jumped into the freezing water. The noise was deafening. Breaking glass, collapsing funnels, the screams of hundreds of people. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic broke in two. The bow section plunged toward the ocean floor. The stern bobbed briefly, then followed. The largest ship in the world had taken just 2 hours and 40 minutes to die. In the water, over 1,500 people struggled to survive. The temperature was 28 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to kill in minutes. Life jackets kept people afloat but could not keep them warm. The screams and cries for help gradually faded as hypothermia set in. Most of the lifeboats rowed away from the swimmers, afraid of being swamped by desperate people. Only one lifeboat returned to search for survivors. It found 4 people alive among hundreds of frozen corpses floating in their life jackets. By 3 a.m., the North Atlantic was silent. At 4 a.m., the Carpathia arrived at the scene. Her crew began pulling survivors from the lifeboats, wrapping them in blankets, trying to comprehend the scale of the disaster. Of the 2,224 people who had been aboard the Titanic, only 710 survived. More than 1,500 were dead, most of them floating somewhere in the dark water or already sinking toward the ocean floor 2 miles below. The news reached the world slowly, then all at once. Headlines screamed the impossible. The unsinkable ship had sunk on her maiden voyage. The public was stunned. Investigations in both Britain and America would expose the failures. Not enough lifeboats, inadequate training, ignored ice warnings, a ship running too fast through dangerous waters. The Titanic disaster ended an era of blind faith in technology and progress. The class divisions visible in the survival rates shocked a world already moving towards social upheaval. New regulations would require enough lifeboats for all passengers, 24-hour radio watch, and the International Ice Patrol that still monitors the North Atlantic today. Standing here, looking back at these final hours, it is impossible not to feel the weight of individual choices, moments of courage and cowardice, love and selfishness, all compressed into one freezing night. The Titanic was not just a ship. She was a world in miniature, and when she sank, she took a piece of human innocence with her. If there's another moment in history you'd like to see reconstructed, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.